Business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Inspiration, motivation takes. Listen to the podcast. We're all about to talk about life. Our guests will share their life story. We want you to success in life and business. We're ready and we will start shortly. We're gonna talk about life. We're going to speak on business. You're gonna shine bright. We are going to witness. Business with a servant's heart. With hosts Steve, Ramona, and Ray. Inspiration, education talks. Listen to the podcast.
One. Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. I'm so thrilled to have you join us today. We dedicate this podcast to exploring the idea of taking your business and your life and having that servant's heart and what impact you can make today. My guests today are going to motivate you, inspire you, and educate you with stories, with resources, with motivation, all kinds of different things. Take notes because you can share this with others. Here's your homework today, audience. I want you to think about how you're going to serve yourself and serve others today and what impact you can create today. That's the whole idea of this podcast, making an impact, taking these guest stories and resources and making a difference. I want to thank my sponsor today, Pantheon. Join a community of high-income entrepreneurs and business leaders who are creating this thought leader, world-changing platform to change your business and grow your business, but also impact and change others. With that being said, my guest today has gone through some major medical issues, but he didn't give up. You're going to hear a lot about resilience, motivation, and just, I think, loving yourself. That's so important, and serving yourself. With that being said, let's bring to our show, Dan, welcome.
Hey, Steve, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I mentioned motivation. Talk about it with your story.
So, it takes place back in jolly old London, England in 2014. Headaches were getting severe on the tube one day. The tube's how you zigzag around London, lumbering towards Nine Hill Gate tube station on the District line. Headaches turned my vision spotty and I saw stars, and they slowly started to fade to black. It was a race to see who could arrive at the station first and mirror the blindness. Arrived at Nine Hill Gate tube station, stepped on the platform, mind the gap, and the lights went out. I couldn't see a thing. The station's swirling around me. The stale air of the platforms on my nostrils. I can't see a thing. So, Steve, I want to ask you, able-sighted guy your whole life, all of a sudden you're thrust into the depths of blindness on a station in London. What do you think? What do you feel? What do you do?
Fear and scared.
Yeah, those are very accurate descriptions. I'll tell you what I did, Steve, and that's absolutely nothing. I stood there and I thought, and I thought, and I thought some more. After the longest 3 minutes of my life, my vision came back, and I carried on my day. But the next day, I went storming back into A&E. A&E is actually an emergency in the UK, like ER in Canada and the States. I told them what had happened. This is not normal. I was blind on a tube station in London. What the hell is going on here? They ran some more tests, and again, they thought it was vertigo. They sent me home. On the way out, they told me I could always get my eyes checked by an optometrist, right? An optometrist, that's kind of odd, but sure, why not? Next day, I found myself in Mr. Patel's chair. He was midway through a routine exam when he stops it, excuses himself in the room, and comes back a few minutes later with a sealed envelope, which he hands to me. He told me to go directly to Moorfields Hospital, which I did. Well, Steve, tell a lie. I stopped at home first to grab a Jack Reacher book by Lee Child, a phone charger, and a bite to eat. Arrived at Moorfields Hospital, handed the envelope. They ran the same test there again, then escalated me out to Charing Cross Hospital. We're getting somewhere. I'm thinking, this is positive. This is a good thing. Now, it turns out, Steve, I had a dangerous buildup of pressure in my brain caused from a non-cancerous cyst in my pineal gland. Preventing the fluid from my brain to drain as it normally would, causing the pressure to mount up, causing the vision issues, causing the headache. Now, it turns out I required emergency brain surgery. Now, it turns out my world's about to change altogether. After a frantic back and forth with folks in Canada, the last text message my mom received reads, "I'll see you soon, Mom. Think I'll have a new haircut next time I see you. Love, Dad." Mom's in the air flying to London on June 21st, 2014. I'm on the operating table. Something goes horribly wrong, and I have a massive bleed in the brain. Brain hemorrhage. I think the cyst burst when they operated. Mom lands and finds I'm in critical condition. I was in a coma for 4 weeks. I was in and out of consciousness for months after this. When all of a sudden I was learning how to walk, talk, and smile again. Now, to touch up on your point about motivation, the way the nurse got me talking again, the doctors didn't tell my parents, you may not be a talker. Vocal cords are fried from the tracheotomy and the breathing tube. You may not be a talker anymore. My parents had built this little dossier on me, like who Dan is, when I was in a coma, to make the practitioners care for me better, perhaps. Dan's a sportsman. Dan's a master's graduate. He lives in Sweden, lives in London now. Here's his girlfriend, Demi. And she goes, oh, he's a sportsman. I'll get him talking again. Takes me out of the park. Some kids playing football, soccer across the park with Steve. She goes, Dan, those kids across the park, they don't think you're good enough to talk, Dan. They don't think you're good enough to talk. I found out pretty quickly that's a motivator for me. And I yelled across the park some profanities about you and your team, but needless to say, I found out what motivates me. Proving you wrong was a huge vibe that drove me to be better than yesterday and to take on tasks that people thought were impossible, like talking, walking. They told me you're probably not going to be able to walk unaided again in his life. That drove me forward. That made me want to prove you wrong. I was driven to go forwards. Now, I saw the Last Dance documentary with Michael Jordan, which you said that you mentioned when we were talking before the show. You said you saw it as well. Now, I'm not comparing myself to Michael Jordan, Steve. Let's be very clear. But I'm not comparing myself to Michael Jordan. The way he motivated himself in that documentary was so apparent to me. Nice game, Mike. Who said that? 2022? I'm going to scorch you next game. Also notice how bitter and jaded Michael Jordan was in this documentary. Talking about Isaiah Thompson, talking about those guys who spited him or talked smack about him, whether they did or not, perceived. And he was a very bitter and jaded old man. So now I'm transition service, motivation to service-based. Len, your success is my success. Now, that's where motivation comes from me now, is service-based, but it's not mutually exclusive. And you can ride both. But don't judge the motivation, ride the way that comes, Steve.
Yeah. How much with the motivation does your support team help?
Oh, like unquantifiable. Family and friends were huge. Visiting me in the hospital, doctors were phenomenal in London. I had all the support in the world, and I struggled so mightily. If you don't have that, man, you're going to have a tough row. That's why the mindset's so key for this, right? Like the mindset about proving you wrong and stoicism that we talked about before the call. Like I really entrench myself in stoicism now. It's not what happens to you, but how you respond to it that matters. It's not what happens to you, but how you respond to it that matters. That's not mine. That's Epictetus. And I live that every day. What can I control? What can I manipulate? What can I do? If I can't manipulate it, I punt it immediately. I just don't waste bandwidth on it. I've got a limited battery now, and I dedicate that battery to stuff I can control. If I can't control it, I immediately punt it.
Yeah. How does resiliency and motivation partner up?
Resiliency, well, stubbornness, I think, is the biggest overlapping thing between that.
Yeah.
Like, I love being told I can't do something. Be like, cool, let me prove you wrong. And that stubbornness, that back against the wall, makes me resilient, motivates me, it makes me want to prove you wrong. But now trying to transition that to more of service, lend a hand, telling my story, sharing my experience, because maybe you don't have the help I had. And in which case, like, hey man, I don't know if you get back to where I'm at today, but I can give you the hacks, the mindsets, the way to look at life to navigate this change effectively and make yourself better than yesterday. And you can do it. It's within yourself. I'll share one quick story with you, Steve, if you don't mind. I did these brain scans a little while ago at a neuroscience clinic in Vancouver, Health Tech Connect. Put this gel cap on your head and they inject you with gel, hook you up with some electrodes, ask you questions like microphone, mouse, glasses, computer, lamp, window, see if your synapses fire. My results came back as average. And I've had 2 emergency brain surgeries. Average is pretty good, right? I read this as I'm shockingly average. There's no way I'm average. Have you seen what I've been through? Average, stuff that. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that average is pretty good. Average means I'm no better or smarter than anyone that I speak to. I've just been driven to go forwards, toes over the nose of my board, riding this wave down. Average. Steve, average.
So you don't think you're disabled, do you?
Well, I try not to speak in that language, but there's very much some lingering effects that impact me. But if I mitigate those, I can navigate life in a pretty seamless way. But it's an apparent thing that I deal with every day. Like fatigue's real. Morning routine's very much intentional practice to get myself better than yesterday. But it's an ongoing fight. And there's this lovely quote that I love to use, and I used in my keynote last week. Gary Vee says, the odds of you being a human being are 400 trillion to 1. 400 trillion to 1. You're more likely to win the lotto 10 times in your lifetime than you are to have a life in the first place. You get to do this. I'm only Dan McQueen because this book was my DNA. If it wasn't in my DNA, it wouldn't be me. And I wouldn't trade myself for the world. I get to do this. When you reframe your mindset to this perspective, I get to do this. What a blessing and blessing and gratitude this is to have life in the first place. Man, you start hunting the stuff that's not in your control, and you focus on what you can control. Control the controllables.
Small wins. You celebrate the small wins, not just the big wins. That's powerful. Life hacks. You mentioned it. Let's educate the audience. I always say, and I've had a lot of guests on, Dan, like you, that've gone through some medical and healthcare trauma, obstacles, whatever words you want to use. What have you learned for life that you can share with the audience to help them?
Well, I've got a whole bunch of hacks that I use, a morning routine that I share quite frequently, but I'll share a few hacks that are a bit more off-piste and a bit more stuff that I don't talk about that often. I had one called Icebreakers in London. So, Steve, have you been to London, England?
I have not.
Okay. London, England is quite busy at places. The circuses are just that, a bloody circus. I had this hack called Icebreakers. What's an icebreaker? Not a social icebreaker, but someone you walk behind in a busy area. You walk right behind them, let them break the ice for you, and you reduce the bandwidth and tax on your battery that you deal with. Icebreakers. I had one called Betting on the Ponies. Taking the tube around London, sitting on the tube allows you to save bandwidth and stretch your battery to make longer than it would be otherwise. So I'd bet on people that would be getting off the stations ahead based on their attire and their dress and where we're in the station. And I try to box out those seats to sit down when I got on the tube. That's called Betting on the Ponies. I use timers and alarms on my phone to help me remember things I need to do. For instance, this podcast came up as 11:50. I got an alarm going off telling me you got a podcast in 10 minutes. Get yourself organized and ready. But you can start structuring your day around these aids that will allow you to navigate life better than you were yesterday. And it's about compromising or adapting to your new surroundings. Adaption's key, and if you don't adapt, you're not playing the game that's meant to be played. Acceptance is so key with this, right? If I don't accept what my limitations are, I can't improve them. I'm always whinging about what could have been, what should have been. What is down? What are you focused on right now? What's in front of your face? What's your perspective right here? By having these hacks, I'm allowed to stretch the bandwidth more than it would be otherwise allowed. So hacks are very important for my day-to-day life now, Steve. Thanks for bringing that up.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for sharing it, because acceptance is a word that popped out to me. That's what we're missing in this world. Accept what's going on, and stoicism again, accept what's going on. How do you do that after 2 brain surgeries and a coma?
Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah.
The first setback took me a few months to get over it. The second setback that I had later, which I haven't talked about yet, took me another month or 2 to get over that. But I quickly realized that rock bottom is a good foundation to build from. So the gains are lost from rehab, but I know how to rehab better. And I sort of started to build myself up one step at a time, one brick at a time. Keep it simple. Aim small, miss small. Pick small winnable targets and ratchet them up. So I swim every week now, and I set an intention for laps in the pool. It could be 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 laps. And I owe those lengths no matter what, Steve. Well, save one exception. If there's a backstroker in my lane, I can punt the lanes entirely and go directly into the sauna. I got a special thing with backstrokers, Steve. But by doing that day after day, week after week, I know that I can do these things. I'm not questioning if I can commit these promises that I've made. I've done it year after year, month after month, day after day, hour after hour. You do this by keeping promises to yourself. You foster that resiliency. And that takes years. But you can start by doing this same thing for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, a year, 2 months, 3 years. Like, you ratchet this up slowly, gradually over time. Aim small, miss small.
Yeah, that's get better 1% every day is what I say. And that allows you, that's those victories. You go swim for 30 minutes, if that's what you do, that's a victory. Yeah, if you do it every day, it doesn't seem like it, but it is because you're getting better, especially you, because it's much more electrified. Because for me to swim every day, I don't swim, it's going to make an impact. For you, being through two brain surgeries and having this issue, with your eye and everything that we see, it's powerful. Talk about this other obstacle that you went through.
Well, so I made it back to work after a year of rehab, vocational therapy, occupational therapy, speech and language therapy, physical therapy. Made it back to work 2.5 days a week, 3.5 days a week. I remember the two before I went to the office in the morning, and one day didn't show up. She calls my cell, no response. Walks up my flat on Solid Grave Road Solid Grave Road by Gold Hawk Road tube station. Knocks on the door, no response. Opens the door. There I am, unconscious on the floor. Calls 999, which is a key distinction between North American terms, which is 911. Rush to the hospital. Wake up the next day in the hospital. The beeping noise, the heart rate monitor going off behind me, beep, beep, beep. What happened? What happened? Well, then you had a second setback. What do you mean? The shunts in my brain had blocked leading to hydrocephalus. It's very rare, they tell me, less than 10% of cases. Lucky me, I thought. But I've been working for a year to get back to the office, a year to put this behind me. Unless my carpet was pulled from my legs. I was back down at square one. I was so low at this point. And it took everything to keep myself down the pity spiral. And I was down for a while. I laid in the suck for a while. I let that embrace me and engulf me and soak into me. And I quickly realized, hey, man, the games are lost, but you know how to do them again. You can do this faster this time. You've done a trial run of this. You can mitigate the mistakes and improve your streamline your process. And I slowly got to work one step at a time, ratcheting this up and just build myself back up. And it took a lot of mindset, a lot of pure grit and determination, and a real belief in myself that I could do this. But I quickly realized, you get to do this. I'm still alive. I get to do this. The odds of being a human being are 400 trillion to 1, right? Which I mentioned earlier. I get to do this. So you can't lose that fight. If you lose the fight, if you lose that spark in your eye, the fire in your eye, I don't know how you get that back. I can't speak to that because I didn't do that. I kept that fire in my eyes going the whole time. But small winnable steps, one step at a time, better than yesterday is what I talk about. 1% better, as you mentioned, and ratchet this up and get back to work.
And what's interesting, audience, anybody can do this. You don't have to go through what Dan's been through. I can do it. I can do it. Dan can do it. You audience can do it. That's the thing. Yours is just more reflective because you've gone through so much. For us to do it, can I go walk 30 minutes today? Yeah, you can do it. Whether you do it or not, we're not going to go down that black hole. But I love that you said that, especially coming from what you've been through. Coming to the end here, I would love to hear something memorable that happened during your rehab, because rehab saved your life, I would guess. I'm sure it has. What's anything memorable that you remember?
Yeah, I'll share a story about learning to walk in Tooten Broadway, if you don't mind, Steve.
Yeah.
This is the rehab was in Tooten Broadway, Wilson Rehab Center, then now relocated. Tooten Broadway is an area in South London, an area they call up and coming. Think loud sirens, drugs, gangs. It's dirty, it's hectic, and boy, is it busy. Walk with a cane, walk with an eye patch. After 4 months in a wheelchair, I'm literally Bambi on ice. I turn the corner to walk on the high street for the first time. Immediately get slammed into by someone. Stagger back a few feet. Someone scurries past me on the right-hand side. I thought I was done with the rats. Someone had been stabbed on the sidewalk over here. I'm thinking, this is a pretty wild place to learn to walk. After a few days of this, I was thinking, this is the worst place to learn to walk in the world. Can't they see I'm trying to walk here? Can't they see I'm trying here? And then one day my perspective shifted. Maybe this is the worst place to learn how to walk in the world. And maybe this is the best. If I can walk here, I can walk anywhere. Now, Tooten Broadway didn't change, right, Steve? But it went from the worst to the best in my mind, and my mood reflected that. What are you looking at in your life you're convinced is the worst? Convinced is the absolute worst. Hey, maybe it is. We can find a way to turn down the suck a little bit, shift that perspective a little bit. Iron Mike Tyson famously said, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Now, your punch may not be a brain hemorrhage, right? Facts. Will be a job loss, a breakup, a diagnosis for you or a loved one. You will take that punch in the mouth. How you respond? I'm offering a compass, not a map, but a compass. It always points towards true north. Look at things like mindset, perspective, and hacks. Hacks that allow you and your team to be better than yesterday, tomorrow. My name's Dan McQueen, and the reason why I told you that story about learning to walk and tune Broadway is when you change the way you look at the world you look at changes. And you don't need a brain hemorrhage to understand that.
I love life hacks because hacks tell me you've been through it. Here, audience, here people you're speaking to and you're speaking gigs. Here's a way to solve it without going through what you went through. It's motivation.
Exactly. And then whether or not you take that advice or not, but like
that's
when you don't and you find out that I was right, you can be like, oh, he was right with this. Maybe I'll listen to more stuff he's got. So it's like just this simple thing of perspective, right? The worst know the best. Like I look forward to my walks, bump into me, crash past me, good, bring it on. If I can walk here, I can walk anywhere. That mindset shift unlocked walking for me again. I look forward to my walks. It was amazing.
Powerful message, Dan. Audience, I hope you wrote that down and took it and live it. And if you do mantras or I forget what you do in the morning, it doesn't matter. You got to believe in it. And you're right. You can believe in it, but you still got to take action. You could have believed in it and never go back to that place again to walk and say, I'm going to go take the easy route. Would you still be here today? Probably. But what you learned and now can share with others like us is so powerful. Coming to the end here, I love, especially a very serious podcast and very important podcast. Let's end with a fun question. So are you still in London? I believe you are, right?
No, I'm in Vancouver now. I moved back.
Vancouver, okay. So in Vancouver, I've reserved a table of 4 at a restaurant for you. So you're going to sit in one of the chairs and the other 3 empty chairs. Who would you invite, whether they're dead or alive, and what food would you order?
Ooh, this is a good question. Wayne Gretzky, Canadian hockey player, big fan. Probably podcast. And the third one would probably be Christy Sinclair, Canadian soccer icon. The food would be steak, medium rare, with some lovely potatoes on the side and a lovely Greek salad and maybe another salad as well, with creme brulee for dessert.
Simple but powerful. I love it. A simple meal that can have a big pack. By the way, Gretzky is the GOAT, just like Michael Jordan. So it's interesting you picked him because he's the GOAT of hockey for sure. Well, you motivated me. I know you inspired the audience and you've educated them. Thank you so much. This has been more than I thought, which is always happens with great guests like you. And I really appreciate you taking the time. I know people listening are going, how can I reach out to Dan? By the way, he does speaking gigs, so you can reach out to him to hire him to come speak. How can they find you?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. My website's McQueen Dan, MacQueen Dan.com. And I'm McQueen Dan across the socials. So find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, all that fun stuff.
Beautiful. Reach out. If you can't reach out to them, all this information will be in the show notes, or you can reach out to me. Last call to action is to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And here's why. When you subscribe, you get these podcasts, but here's a podcast link that you receive. It's a gift. Imagine you're listening, and I'm probably going to take this to a couple of people I know that are struggling, and you share this with what Dan put out there, and you change their lives. You made the impact that I started the whole show with. Why not? Let's make an impact. Let's change the world. The world needs it. Well, you can start with podcasts, whether it's Dan's show or somebody else's show. That's why you want to subscribe. And it could be somebody else's podcast as well. Use those to make them as gifts. You do that, you'll make the impact and difference you want to do. With that being said, me and Dan want to thank you all for watching or listening to this podcast. We'll see you all in the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. Have a great day, everyone.